Hello. It's been quite some time since we last saw each other. I apologize. There has been a lot going on in the world these days. I'm sure you are aware of them. I have a nice little setup here for you and for myself. I hope that you find it a comfort to you. It has a nice ambient light behind me with a nice phrase and sitting on a very comfortable couch. So, it seems you're coming to me because you need to be relaxed and have your mind taken off of things. Understandable. Well, you've come to the right place, and a good time. What was I reading? This is the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's quite interesting read. It's about a variety of different people from the Middle Age period. They're all part of a caste system. So you have the knights, the nobles, peasants, and so on, priests. And it's an interesting book because it's about the individual person. So it's not like reading an entire story. It's sections. See, this one is The Lawyer's Tale. I don't know if you can see that, but this one is about a lawyer. This is actually an ad. It's from a book club. This particular book is from the 80s. I believe they discontinued these, but it's a very nice looking book for a book that's around 40 years old. It's in good shape, and it has the paper, very crisp paper, and it has the ruffles on the edge, and it's quite a good hardcover. I recommend this kind of book, but we're not here for that. We're here for your relaxation purposes, correct? Okay. So, we're going to start with a brief breathing in and forgetting our current woes, if you will. Okay? So we're going to do deep breaths, alright? So in and out. So in and out. In and out. And we're going to continue this. And you can continue as you'd like. But I'm just going to do a quick little talk with you right now, if that's okay with you. Okay. Now, a lot of people struggle with social media, alright? There's always this pressure to put out your best photos of you doing some kind of an activity, right? So you always look at a photo on, let's say, Instagram or Facebook, and you see somebody on a boat in the summer with drinks in their hand. You're like, wow, what am I doing? I'm sitting at home playing video games or something. I'm missing out on that, especially if you're single and you see a couple there and you feel jealous or you feel insecure and so on, right? Well, imagine a time before any of that existed. Okay? So we're here to clear your mind and think of a different era. Okay? Now, there are two videos I want to talk about that you can look up on YouTube, or you can Google them and whatever. It's a video from 1906 and a video from 1911. Okay? Now, the 1906 video is more of an interesting tale than the 1911 one, but we'll go over them both. We'll start with the 1906 one. Now, this is actually a recording of a video from 1906. Now, I won't show it because copyright reasons and so on, but I will put a link in the description and feel free to check it out. They're not very long, but they're quite interesting to just focus on what you're watching and think about the era, right? And what people did at the time. So, in the 1906 video, it's a man recording the daily routines of people through a street in San Francisco. So you'll see people on carriages or little bicycles or new automobiles that were invented at the time. And there weren't that many. So we're talking 114 years ago. So you just see young children running around playing. I believe this was in April, and I'll get to why it's important. So you see people in these very vintage buildings on the side. You see people walking or running or doing whatever. So you'll see the men in a suit and like top hats or the curved hats I might have had in a previous video. And you'll see women in these very poofy long dresses. Now, San Francisco in April, I'd say the temperature was probably around 50 degrees, about 50, 55 Fahrenheit. So that's what? Something in Celsius, right? It's about, I don't know, whatever it is in Celsius. If you're familiar with it, I'm sure you can look it up. But these people are just doing their daily routine, and they're looking at the camera as if something strange. Cameras weren't really a thing back then, and it was about a crank one, not like the 4K quality you see today, or as good as you believe this video is. But there was no color, but this video actually has sound of something, people chattering, stuff like that, or the gravel underneath the horses as they walk by. Very calming, peaceful thing, and I highly recommend watching it if you want something to relax to and throw you back in time. Now these people clearly are long dead. Even the children, the babies at the time, are long dead. Over 100 years. This was before the Titanic even sank. That's how old this is. And it's just, think about the mindset. People didn't know about social media. They don't go on the computer and look up people that they don't know or do know and get jealous of them. There was no hanging by the pool kind of thing. There was pool houses at the time, of course, but there was no everyone has a boat or everyone has a fancy car that you can feel jealous of. It was just get up, do your thing, go to sleep, and so on and so forth. But the thing with this video is, if you're familiar with history, this was 4 days before the great earthquake that leveled the entire city. So these people were just doing their thing, their normal routine, not worried about what other people are doing, and they know that in 4 days things would completely change. 80% of the city would be destroyed, thousands of people would die, and so on. But putting that aside, think about the simple life that these people had compared to now. Would you want to be back in that time where things were simpler? Or would you want to be in this time where things are more complex? Putting the pandemic aside, because a couple years later they'd have their own pandemic, about 12 years later, I believe it was the flu of 1918 or 17, I forgot which year it was, but one of those years. But this was a simpler time, but they were feeling very excited because of the advances, technology. The automobile was just invented. The airplanes were starting to be developed, I guess you will, with the Wright brothers, which were a few years before this. But think about the basic time and how exciting, let's say, the camera was. People didn't know what that was. They saw a man filming something new, right? But they had no idea that it would become something like Instagram or social media platforms and stuff like that. But to put yourself in that mindset, that ease of just doing what you had to do that day and earning the wages of the time, which probably wasn't a lot compared to now. And I'm going to move on to the New York story, how little interested that is. Now this one is in 1911, okay? So it looks like it's another person behind a trolley, right? which were very common at the time. Now you can only find them in San Francisco. But you see the difference in the cities, right? Even though it's only 5 years later. New York seemed to be more busy, right? But still peaceful and calm, not like today, where you walk into Times Square and there's lights everywhere, and they didn't have that stuff. It was just, you get up, go to work or school or whatever it was, and then maybe on the weekends just go for a stroll, go to your local store, get your food or whatever it is you get, and you would just do your thing. Again, automobiles were still relatively new, and if you had one, it was a big thing. But I don't know if people were super jealous about it. Um, Not like today, where if somebody has, let's say, a BMW or something, and you have a beat up Kia, whatever, it wasn't the same mentality, so there was less stress that way. Okay? Of course, you'd want the cool technology of the time, but it wasn't like you go on Facebook and get mad at somebody for having a nicer thing. There was none of that. It was peaceful. Alright? But there's a particular part of this video that is interesting. At one point, a car gets very close to the back of this person filming, and it has someone who's employed by them with a family. Alright? And the person employed by them, you can tell, is much different from the video. You can understand why. But you see these people and you can see their faces. It was actually pretty good quality. And you think to yourself, I wonder who these people were. Not like on a social media thing where you want to look into everything about them. You just want to know who these people were. You know? How long did they live? Or what was their family like? Things like that. Now, there was a license plate on this vehicle, much different than the ones you see today. It was just maybe 4 or 5 numbers, like 18432, something like that. And there's actually, someone actually went into looking these people up. And they actually found it, since there was only about 30,000 cars in New York at the time, which is a very low number compared to what it is today. And they found that these are actually Polish immigrants. They had been in the United States for about 20 years at the time. A lot of the kids were born in the United States. And you read the history books, and you see immigrants come over, and you're like, oh, that's my great-grandparents or whatever. Now, these people, I'd say, are more than that. Probably great-great-grandparents or whatever. But you're seeing the history part right in front of you. Now, you read in the book, oh, so-and-so came here and they did this and did that. But you're actually seeing footage of these people doing their routine. They were going from one place to the other, wherever it was. And this video is 109 years ago. Think about it. Over 100 years ago, you're seeing live, well, not live, but recorded video of when it was live. And it's kind of relaxing to just hear the sounds of these little automobiles and people riding their bikes and their bells, and the horses walking with the little gallop sound on the stones and everything. And this was normal. This is what they did every day until things started to change, when you got into the 20s and 30s, 40s, and so on. But they looked into these people, and the home that they lived actually was just sold 3 years ago or something. So that house was in that family's name since they immigrated here in the early 1900s, or late 1800s in the father's case that you see. But there's a story behind it, and it's interesting. It's not like today when you look up, Jane or whoever, and be like, I don't like them, or so on, that bitch and this and that, whatever. You're just seeing a family who had immigrated here, who made a name for themselves and did their thing. And I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, but it's interesting and relaxing to follow the story of who these people were. It turns out he was very involved in the community, and he was part of this thing and that thing and so on. And sadly, he died 7 years after this video. And still, 1918, that was still 102 years ago. Over 100 years ago. So everybody's long dead, even the little kids in the thing. But it makes you interested in what was going on in their life, right? So, interesting things to relax about. I know I found myself relaxed and at ease just looking at the simpler time of these people. So, you think about all these things that are, for the most part, are often nonsense, and you just look at this era and you go, wow, what a difference. I mean, these people were well off, but they were happier, if you will, than a lot of people today. There's more stresses in the world today. So, if you can put yourself in that mindset of just doing your normal thing, not worrying about any outside factors, it's just interesting. And some of these videos were often colorized, and obviously when you colorize something, it's not exactly the color that it was, but to see it happening after reading about something like that is just extraordinary. So it's like picking up this book but seeing a video of these people, even more of a simpler time, about 1,000 years ago almost, to the 1100s, 1200s, but still, the things that stressed them out were different. Were making sure they had enough food, making sure they earn an extra penny or two so they can buy something. But they were generally happier folks. The thing that a lot of people don't get in the world is if you have a ton of money and you don't have any money at all, the people with no money are always, they're more empathetic and grateful for things, and the people that have a lot of money, they take things for granted more. So just putting that, just explaining the difference in how the society is for people's mindsets and everything, and that when you finally have money, you feel the emptiness because you have more of a drive when you don't have money. If that makes sense. So again, I can go on a little tangent here, but you get what I'm saying. So I hope you can find something like that relaxing to think about. Don't think about being in that time, worry about feeding your family and so on, but think about that the outside stressors besides basic living were very low, and you want to kind of emulate that in today's society. Don't worry about what other people are doing, just kind of focus on what you're doing. Go about your business normally and not worry about, that person has more than me, or this person looks like they're better off. Because the thing with social media is you often see stuff and think, wow, that person has it all, I have nothing. And that's not completely true. A lot of people who have stuff or only like to show you the nicer part of what they have, they may be struggling, so you want to feel grateful for what you have and just be calm about things. Don't let things get you crazy. Do what you have to do and feel grateful that you can accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Now me, for example, we'll just use my YouTube channel as an example. What you see me, once every few months, based on my video scheduling. And then you look at somebody else who has, let's say, 1 million subscribers, and the world behind them seems different, right? And sometimes they do live extravagantly, sometimes they don't. But that person may be struggling, that 1 million subscriber person may be struggling, whereas someone with less subscribers might not be. You see what they put out, right? Social media thing. You see what they put out, and you feel bad about yourself. when you don't have to be, because they might be struggling worse than you, but you won't see it because they're not going to post the bad things unless they're a character developing person and they want you to see how they've changed. But a lot of people don't do that. They want you to see the best of themselves, right? So you got things to think about like that, where they didn't have that in the past. There was no, let me show you a picture of how great this is, but I don't have that kind of thing, and feel jealous. I mean, jealousy has always existed, but it was on a different level than it is today. So the whole point of what I'm saying is be happy and care for yourself and don't worry about other people. But if you want to look at those videos that I said, obviously you're not going to be jealous of people from over 100 years ago, but take from them something that you wouldn't take from with social media. You know, look at it and be like, wow, I really like to know about the history of these people. Not like I said with the history of people today, like, oh, I wonder how they got that BMW. Look at it as a learning lesson kind of a thing. If any of this makes sense, you understand what I'm saying. Just look at it and go, wow, that's very historic and interesting. I want to know how they got to be in like this video, what made them who they were from doing their routine, and so on. And it's just a completely different way of looking at things. I know I learned a lot about myself because I looked into even older things, and you can actually find photos from the 1830s and 40s, which is much older than what we're talking about too, about how people got up every day and they had to do menial tasks like beat the dirt out of a rug to earn those 4 pennies a day. Whereas now we'll get upset if we don't get our $30 an hour kind of thing, you know, or you'll see multimillionaires doing nonsense work and so on, and you compare it to people back then who did simple things like clean waste off the streets, the cobble streets from horse droppings as they took people to wherever. You know, you be grateful for what you have and think that things could be worse, you know. So you may have your little struggles with watching somebody on Instagram and being like, oh, I wish I had that. It's not important in today's world when you really think about it. Is it really worth beating up yourself so you can see pictures of something that may or may not be accurate? You know, just because you have money and fame doesn't mean everything comes easy. You see a lot of celebrities committing suicide. When you think, oh, wow, they had money, what were they doing? It's not always about that. It's not always about what you put out. It's what you don't put out that sometimes makes the difference, you know? You know, I could be struggling, you don't know. You just see the videos and you go, wow, he's pretty good off. No, you don't know that. So, I'm reiterating what I said, that you just have to be grateful for what you have and don't kill yourself, sometimes literally, over what somebody else has. So I hope you enjoyed this little brief chat and feeling good about yourself, because nobody is worth more than you are. I'm not worth more than you are. You're not worth more than me. We're all the same, although society likes to put labels on things, from based in, even in the book about how people are a lawyer or a knight and there's peasants, you know, and stuff like that. The physician. I feel like I've been all over the place, but what I'm saying is you don't have to be rich and famous to be happy, and not everything you look at is what it seems. So I hope this relaxation session, quite different from what you're used to has appealed to you. And I hope that you can reevaluate things in not only your life, but in other people's, you know. So, I hope to see you again, and keep breathing, relax, calm down, and enjoy what you have, because there's always people that have less than you. And like I said, you can find many of these videos online. They're not very long, because film wasn't long back then, but just, take a look at them and see the difference in their lives and your lives. And I know it sounds like kind of a contradiction to what I was saying about don't look at other things and judge it, but that was more modern stuff. Just look at, walking around, going to the shops, and so on, and how they dressed. It's a lot different than today, but it was pretty much the same. I mean, there's different brands and so on, but people kind of were the same. It was just how they did things was pretty simple, yet it was more satisfying, I feel, than it is now. Now we're always feeling empty, whereas then it was just you did what you had to do. And I feel like a lot of people should really think that way. You just, make the earnings, support your family or whatever, have what you feel is important. Don't go overboard. Don't It's not, the grass is not always greener kind of mentality, which a lot of people have. So I know I've struggled with it over time. We've all had. But it's really not that important when you really break it down. Try to think like these people did back then, just going about their day. So hopefully this rant wasn't too boring or all over the place, but I feel like I covered exactly what we wanted to hear. Right? We had the soothing background kind of thing going on, with a quiet voice, with a little bit of a feel-good lecture. Alright? So, be happy for what you have, and I wish everyone the best. Take care.